Alright guys, I'm Vince, this is my colleague Matt, and today we're going to bring you through a presentation that we've done primarily with Indeed and jobs that are basically relevant to us in the analytics curriculum here at Montclair. So throughout this presentation we're going to focus primarily on the jobs that we think that we can get outside of this curriculum and how we can go ahead and improve on the job search. So, let's take it away.
Alright, so first off, I just want to say that this moment is bittersweet for me. Because I love this concentration. A year ago, I had no idea what I was doing with my life, but after taking Info 365, which was Foundations of Business Analytics, I had meaning to my life.
We should videotape this and show it to every student.
Anyway, it's bittersweet because we love you guys, and we also love this major. So we're here to, one, help ourselves, but also to help you. So when we were looking for jobs outside of college, where do we fit in? Right? We're business students. But when business students go out into college, after college, they become business people. Right? So if we were to go across campus and we were to be computer science nerds, we'd be hacking and coding into the matrix and running programs. But there's an interesting point to this. We know Python. And if you know Python, you want to be a wizard. So once you start to be a wizard, you can officially, once you're fluent in Python, become a grand wizard. And you'll end up looking like that guy. All right? Next time. So we have all of these different attributes and skills, right? We have machine learning, and I would love to point to the attention that the dog is actually a wizard in that picture. We learn a little bit about statistics. We know a little bit of SQL. Now we know a little bit of Python, and we know a little bit about data visualization. So what does that make us? Does that make us a data analyst or something else? So, which titles should we and you guys be searching for after we get out of this major? So you can expect the normal ones: data analyst, maybe data scientist, analytics intern. But the interesting thing about this, if you go on Indeed, there's a wide variety of different job titles. So while we have data analyst, it could be junior data analyst, senior data analyst, intern for data analytics, a consultant, or even, as we'll see in the East Coast, it gets really specific. So if you work for a healthcare company, your title's healthcare data analyst. So how are we going to solve this issue, right? It seems like our major's not really well defined, and people don't know which title to classify their jobs. So we're going to help you out. Based on our curriculum, what jobs are we qualified for? And as we go through these jobs, we're going to be asking these questions. And do jobs have similar requirements? And what textual trends can be realized from going through jobs? Meaning, what skills, what attributes, what things do you have that other people don't that will land you the job? So how can we incorporate these trends and create a model to help us land jobs?
Okay. So in order to go ahead and solve the issue that Matt just described, what we need to do is we need to go ahead and go through jobs and try to pick up on some of these trends. What makes an analytics job that we can land an interview for? What makes that a job that we can go ahead and get? So in order to do that, we need to go ahead and essentially get job information from the job repository. There's many job sites out there. There's Indeed, there's Monster, there's LinkedIn, there's all these sites. Primarily, we're focused on Indeed. It's one of the prime sites that employers list jobs on, and we elected to go ahead and scrape information from Indeed in order to gather the textual information that we do need. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to automate this process, scrape as many jobs as we can, throw it into a model, and see if that model will go ahead and determine a job that will be applicable to us out of this concentration. And most importantly, we wanted to pinpoint the skills that are required in order for us to perform these jobs accurately and be able to go ahead and land the interview. So with Indeed, one of the problems that we had is when you click on a job in Indeed, as you'll see on the left here, it links you to a site within Indeed itself in a nice, clear, textual format. However, about 60% of the jobs that are listed on Indeed actually point you to an external site on the employer site itself. So we have a mismatch of formats in order to scrape these jobs. That itself created the first problem for us. Because in order to scrape the data, we need a nice, clean format that is consistent across all of the job descriptions. So in order to go ahead and sort of fix that issue, what we did is we using the book Web Scraping in Python, we noticed that there were some patterns in the links that we would click on in order to go check out the jobs. One of the things that we saw in some of the links was something called JK equals, which happened to equal job key. Not all the jobs that we saw on Indeed had what was called a job key. However, Matt and I were able to go ahead and sign up for an Indeed API developer account. And what we were able to do is we were able to do API searches on Indeed's back end of the website and actually pull the job keys from all of the jobs, even the jobs that did not link us to the sites that were, or the job descriptions that were hosted on Indeed. So what we were able to do is we were then able to compile a list of all the job keys for jobs that we perceived as relevant to us, and then feed that into a model which would then give us all of the jobs on the Indeed natural site, which would solidify the format for scraping the jobs nice and clean.
So I'm going to take you into the process of our project.
Is that you?
This is us.
This is how we started.
This is how we started. So unlike all the other projects, guys, you guys had your data. You had your label. Whether for PolitiFact, you were able to scrape whether it was mostly true or not. For you guys on Kickstarter, you could see if it was overfunded or underfunded. The thing that killed us was we had to classify our own jobs. So me and Vince tackled a huge feat of classifying almost 1,000 jobs, reading them and seeing if they were applicable to us or not. So if they were applicable to us and we believed that we could land an interview, we classified it as a 1. If not, we classified it as a 0. So we move on into our journey classifying the East Coast. This is our next step. We didn't want to do New York because what we want to do, guys, is give you jobs in New York, right? That's where most of us are going to be ending up. So what we did was we classified jobs from Boston and Philadelphia. Now when we did this, we noticed that there was a big difference between what job postings were in different areas. So for example, in Philadelphia, the job titles and what they wanted is very different than what they wanted in Boston. So as we kept going through, we ended up looking like this. This was about job application 600. Yes, yes, that's what it looks like when you go through Python. So now we're in the West Coast jobs.
Indeed.
Now we thought East Coast jobs in 2 different locations a little different. When we went out into the West Coast, completely different jobs. It seemed like they were more broad. They had different job descriptions. They were offering different salaries. So we were kind of confused as what are we going to do? So at the near end of classifying over 1,000 jobs, we ended up looking like this. We have done so much work for you that we hopefully can bring you value at the end of our presentation.
We literally spent 4 days classifying jobs. I've spent more time with Matt than I've even spoken to my wife, and it's been interesting. It's
Just
been
a quick question.
Yes.
So these job titles do
Yes.
not have data word in it or analyst word in it?
So good question. So the Indeed API lets you search for any title in any zip code with any parameters that you could using Indeed. So what we did is we searched for data analyst in different areas, and sometimes we searched for data analytics if we weren't getting relevant searches. So now that you've had some fun with us about labeling the data, let's get into some of the statistics. Out of the almost 1,000 jobs, 30% of the jobs that we classified came up as relevant as something that we could get. So the number is important. Now across the board, there were various job descriptions. Some job descriptions were very short and concise, and others were completely too long, and they wanted everything from you. The next thing that kind of Vince showed was job postings are not uniform. So some jobs were very uniform in the way that they wanted your skills. So there would be a skills requirement, and they'd list those out. But some jobs, it was just a giant block of text. So as we went through classifying these jobs, we agreed about 90% of the time whether they were a 1 or a 0. When we came to a discrepancy, we sat down, we went over it just to make sure that we're on the same page. Now, here's the funny thing about classifying these jobs. Some of these people have no idea what data analysts do. Okay? They want wizardry. One of the things that, this was an entry-level position, okay? Entry-level, 1-year experience. They wanted you to have a bachelor's in some quantitative field as well as one in biochemistry. So they're not really, someone with an entry-level job isn't going to have 2 degrees in biochemistry and something in like statistics. So the job market's big, but it's new that they don't really know what they want yet. So let's go over some of the titles that you guys should be searching for. Now this is the East Coast, and keep in mind we did 595 applications on the job list. Now granted, this graph is a little bit dirty because the word data analyst shows up 25 times, but on top of that, things like junior data analyst or junior data scientist would be in front of the title, as well as healthcare data analyst. So in the East Coast, it seems like jobs were way more specific on what you needed. But if we move into the West Coast, there's 45 titles that we could classify for with the word data analyst. So this tends to make us believe that the West Coast is more broadly defined. Now if you notice on the other slide, in the East Coast, data scientist was actually number 2 that came up. So guys, congratulations, you are data scientists.
Yeah.
And now, yes, exactly, 10 years of experience. So the big question, I've had a couple of job interviews and actually some job offers, and it's always awkward for me to know what salary should I start out on. So I'm going to give that to you. So we couldn't scrape whether it was a 1 or a 0 job for the salary information, so I'm just going to give you a broad overview. When we searched for a data analyst in New York City, the starting salary was about $65,000 a year with only 1 year experience. Now you've been in school for about a year, I would say that you have 1 year experience. The lowest we saw for something that we would even want to apply for was about $50,000. You're in the right major. So another good point to mention is there's almost 6,500 jobs alone with the title of data analyst in New York City, paying $65,000. The market is red hot, and we want to be able to give you the best fit for the job that you're going to be going into.
So in order to do that, we need to do some modeling. And right off the bat, I just want to go ahead and mention that we used a naive Bayes model to classify all of our jobs. We initially tried logistic regression and decision trees as well. In addition to taking 6 to 7 hours to run, our results were abysmal. We were looking at single-digit percentages as far as precision and accuracy, so we immediately discarded those models and didn't work on any feature engineering to bolster up those models. So we're going to focus primarily on naive Bayes and talk about a little bit about what we did to feed this data into the model in order to get accurate results that could better predict these jobs. So first of all, we went through the jobs on Indeed, on the natural Indeed site, which would allow us to scrape the text nice and cleanly just from the job description. We didn't scrape any job titles or anything like that, just the job description itself for certain zip codes. Based on that, we cleaned the text. We scraped the raw HTML. We removed all of the HTML tags. We then removed all the contractions from the words to go ahead and just get a nice clean set. Converted everything to lowercase so we didn't have any duplicate words. We also lemmatized the entire data set, so we reduced the number of words that we had into similar words. From there, we removed a traditional set of stop words plus an additional set of stop words that we deemed important, because a lot of these jobs had words in them that were similar across the spectrum, such as equal opportunity, sex, creed, origin. All of these words are boilerplate terms for job descriptions that would end up skewing the model. So these were added to an exhaustive list of stop words that were removed from all of our job descriptions. We also toyed with the idea of n-grams, unigrams, bigrams, and trigrams. We found those that they had predicted value for our model. In the end, we actually combined all single words, bigrams, and trigrams together in the job descriptions in order to enhance our feature set. So during this course, we actually had a lot of epiphanies with Python. Some of the epiphanies that we had is that, like I mentioned before, coding will ruin relationships. You will have dreams about Python. You will try to talk about Python to others. They will not understand Python. It doesn't end well. You probably shouldn't say this, but you will do Python times you're not supposed to be doing Python. It has problems. Another issue that we had is when you fat finger a number, it will skew everything. We thought we solved all of the world's problems. We had 90-some-odd% accuracy, and I realized that I used my training data in part of my validation data. Massive proxy. So you have to be extremely careful when you're coding. We realize that you are not one number off because you will make a fool out of yourself in front of the professor. Another thing is you better be very quick with Google and Stack Overflow, solving a lot of the problems. And in doing so, we also learned that programmers and coders have a very unique sense of humor. And a lot of the variables that they list on Stack Overflow are usually named after human waste and other weird things like that. So it's just really weird humor.
Programmers do not have any sense of humor.
They think they do, I think. So that's what we realized from doing this model after many hours. So in the end, what we're really trying to do is optimize your search for jobs. Currently, if you search on Indeed, you're going to get a list of jobs, some of which, 30%, are going to be applicable to you as an analytics concentration. So what we're trying to do is predict the results that are going to be based on jobs that we train the model for, that we can apply to, and then only include the jobs that are relevant to our concentration. And from there, you can go ahead and filter the jobs that apply to you with a descending percentage to give you the ones that have the highest degree of being applicable to you. And we're going to focus on higher precision for our model because we want to focus on a better metric than the 30% prior probability you're going to get from Indeed itself. So these are the most important features that we get out of the model. I won't go through them all here, but just to show you, the most important feature that was even mentioned in the job description text was actually a specific salary range of $71,000 to $80,000. That gave you a probability of 12 to 1 of being an analytics job that we would actually be able to land an interview for based on our skill set. Going down the list, some other important diagrams here are a strong problem. You could infer that would be strong problem solving skills. Further down the list, it's really important to have a sense of humor. A lot of these jobs try to describe a laid-back environment where you're going to have a sense of humor and be able to code and not want to go crazy. Another part that's interesting is PhD. Having a doctoral degree actually gives you negative odds of having a job that we could apply for. And that makes sense because if you're requesting a doctoral degree with a BS degree or an MS in some of these instances, we're not going to be able to apply to these jobs. Some of the issues that we have with this, though, are when we ran the model, a lot of the probabilities were the same. So we didn't include all the probabilities here, but we had a lot of similar odds. For example, we had many 12 to 1, 12 to 1, 12 to 1, 12 to 1. And we noticed the reason that was because a lot of jobs from larger companies, in our case we had Liberty Mutual, Comcast, NBC, Apple, Facebook, and Google. In the broad spectrum of jobs that they post, they use the same same terms to describe their job postings, which end up skewing our model in certain ways. So it ends up creating a certain sense of noise in our model that will skew it a certain way. So it's important to know that a lot of these companies are being very specific in their jobs across all of the descriptions.
So when you say strong problem, you probably mean strong problem solving.
You can probably
That was the full phrase.
Exactly. You can probably infer that the next word here is going to be strong problem solving skills, not strong problem creator.
Just wanted to be
I mean, that's my assumption. I'm hoping it's correct, but I'm pretty sure.
All right, guys, so here is a lift chart that we made by hand that shows the value that our model really brings to you. So the black bar across the screen would represent the 30% that you would normally get by scraping jobs by Indeed and going through by hand, seeing if this job applies to you or not. However, anything in the blue above that black line says that our model gives value, that it helps you, in other words, find jobs that are more applicable to you so you don't have to go through 1,000 jobs like we did. So as you can see in this next slide here, we validated our model on a data set of 300 jobs from the West Coast. And what's interesting here is we trained the model on East Coast jobs and validated on West Coast jobs to see if the knowledge would transfer. And it actually did. So here in this little Excel screenshot here, the random letters and numbers are actually the job key to the job posting. So what you could do is take these job keys, put it into the URL, and find the job that is hand-tailored, in other words, towards you. And what we did is we scored the probabilities of these jobs So the top job is going to be the most, according to our model, the most likely to fit your skills. And so this will save you tons of time. No longer do you have to go through 1,000 jobs, but our model does it for you. Actually, me and Vince were kind of kidding around that we have our own neural network in our head. Within about 10 seconds, we can see if a job is applicable to you, so just send us an email. So let's take this a step further. You guys had to use Selenium, or at least you tried to. I don't know if you guys remember in the earlier presentation, Easily Apply had the same format. Now, Easily Apply links you to an Indeed site, and on that Indeed site, there's an Apply Now button. Now, if you have an Indeed account with a resume, you could, it's not really kosher, but you could take our model and just blast job applications to everyone who our model says that this job would apply to you. Now, I would advise against this because you want to be a perfect fit for the company, but let's say you're short on time, you need a job, go ahead and blast your resume out to 1,000 jobs hand-tailored to you. But I didn't tell you that.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the model performance and some of the drawbacks that we had. Even though we removed a large amount of stop words, the words that we removed had a negligible effect on the performance of the model itself. What this really amounted to is we ended up having a decent amount of noise in our model. We simply had too many words in our feature set. Each job posting was between 300 and 600 words, and a lot of those words had no predicted value, but they were still included in our model. With more time, we could actually take out the words that did not matter and only feed the model the top X number of predictors, and that would likely increase the metrics of our model. But without that time, we were not able to do that. Another thing that really hurt us was the lack of standardization in the job postings, because some jobs would be very clear and concise about the skills that were required and the attributes they were looking for in future employees, while some jobs were written more free-form, in paragraph form, not looking for specific skills, but looking more for a conceptual employee. Like Matt previously mentioned, our heuristic model may actually be a better choice, and what I mean by that is Matt and I have what I believe right now a pretty intense knowledge of what employers are looking for coming out of this concentration here. We can tell you with a fairly high degree of certainty if you have a bachelor's, if the job is asking for a bachelor's degree, if it's not asking for a PhD, if it's asking for some Python skills, some SQL skills, if it's asking for 1 to 3 years experience, you have a very high percentage chance of that job applying to you if you meet those criteria. We could build a model off of criteria of that based on what we've learned just from going ahead and scraping these jobs and hand coding them. We didn't have time to do that, but we feel it would actually perform much better than the naive model if we were able to go ahead and implement this heuristic model.
So I want to talk about the future of our program, of our code, and to be able to help you guys. So as Vince mentioned, we wanted to maybe go into heuristic modeling. That in the short term is something we're going to be doing after this presentation, because we do want to actually keep going with this. We think that this can provide value. We also want to add more features. So the length of a job posting is what we found important. If the job was relatively short, they knew what candidate they wanted. However, if a job posting was really long, they wanted everything from the world and back. So it's probably something that you can't apply for, nor a place that you would want to work for. So adding a feature like word count or length of review was something that we would be wanting to put in our model. And the next thing is reducing the amount of noise in our model. We have reason to believe that there's just too much going on with scraping 1,000 job reviews. And we did try training on a lesser set, but to really no avail because there was so much junk in the job descriptions. So in the long term, here's where we want to go. How cool would it be if you upload your resume, we scrape the text from your resume, and then we go on Indeed or even other job sites and hand pick jobs for you to apply for. So we give you a custom job list with higher probabilities of, hey, we think this job's going to be a good match for you. I think that'd be cool. And on the flip side, let's go to a big company where they spend thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars on an HR department. how easy would it be to maybe get rid of 1 or 2 employees and run our model to say, hey, you don't need to read 1,000 resumes. These resumes are the types of resumes that you want to be looking for the job that you posted. So going forward, me and Vince hope to bring in some of these aspects to our model. Thank you. Yeah, Kickstarter. Actually, it is a computer program. It's in IT.
It's all the
I
criteria.
actually have a question.
Yeah.
With your lift crap, can you go back to it?
Ryan, I have a feeling you're doing this on purpose. But
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Does that basically mean unless I personally sift through 250 applications or more, I should use your thing?
So this is what this is saying. If you had, because we filter our list by the highest probabilities, the first 50 jobs that we give you are this times more beneficial. Right. More likely.
Okay, so unless I'm gonna apply to 300 jobs, I should use your thing.
Well, you're going to be going through those. Just going through jobs yourself, I went over 100 just applying for things after graduation. But if you use our model, you'd only really have to use 50 because we deliver you 50 jobs with a higher probability.
In a sense, you're going to shrink the set that you're going to have to go through.
Yep.
Yet the jobs you click on first are going to be the ones that apply to you most.
Got it.
So it does 2 things. It shrinks the set and then tailors it specifically to you, at least for the first jobs.
Any other questions?
How many hours spent total?
Over 100.
Days.
Couple.
I mean, it took us 4 days just to scrape the data. We spend a lot of time together.
It's great. I mean, I don't even want to tell you honestly, but almost every day we've been together, multiple hours.
And we were able to get output just yesterday. So we've been working.
Yesterday.
Just in time. Just in time.
We've been working a lot on this. So hopefully you guys have learned something about what job titles, what salaries you go for.
Should I apply for the #1 key job?
If you'd like to bid on that, we can talk.
Oh, the other important factor is this actually works, believe it or
Yeah.
not. And it's actually really cool to mention in the interview. So, how did you hear about us? Well, I have this code that we've worked on. And,
Yeah.
Do you want to know how the
But the
code is
point is,
done? Tonight, that's it.
it works. You will get a list of jobs that are more tailored to you.
I'm
So
looking
what's the most popular job site these days?
We think Indeed, when we went on LinkedIn, Monster.com is
Yeah.
terrible, but LinkedIn was weird.
Yeah.
Some jobs were really good, but some jobs were way off the mark. Indeed had more of a spread of what we were looking for. But Indeed's old.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're thinking of redoing Indeed.
Any other questions?
Looks promising.
Very good.
I have to go to break my